So you can also, I see. What I'll do is I'll go into the elevations. I'll start with the elevations. Let's look for an elevation. East, north, south, west. Okay. Okay. Now I can see. First thing is it seems like, do you have a topography in there already? Is there a site in there, or is it just there is a site? Okay. So usually, if you have a site in a project like this, you don't want to be able to see the foundation. So what you need to do is, if I go into the site plan here, and if I roll out a little bit, I can see that your site is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch it a little bit by editing the surface and dragging it out, so that when the elevation view cuts, it will cut through the site. So that if I do that like this and go back into the elevation, which one was I looking at? West. You can see that it's actually cutting through the site, which is hiding the foundation. So in an elevation view, an elevation is supposed to be like a more or less realistic view of what the house will look like, orthogonally. So you never ever show a foundation in there, because then people will they will understand the foundation as being a wall, and then the house is built on top of the wall, and then it's up on the it's just endless confusion that happens in there. So the initial Revit template, it gets set up with this kind of gray color for the site, but it's more typical if you're thinking about saving ink. It's more typical just to have it white, so you don't see anything at all. So most of what I'm going to talk about today is to do with these two buttons here: visibility graphics overrides and graphic display options. And these two buttons are visible if you don't select anything. So they're just talking about the view. Everything here is talking about this view and only this view. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go into visibility graphics overrides and press edit. And this shows me a panel of all the elements in the drawing here. So I can come in here and find the topography. There's the topography there. And if I select it, you can see I get all these override buttons. So I can override what it looks like in the drawing. So I'm going to override the cut pattern here. See, it says cut pattern. I'm going to override it. So let's make it a white. And we'll make sure that we change it to solid. You can't see it here because I've just changed it to white. If I did it backwards, it would be more obvious. Press OK. And if I apply that, you can see that now it's just a white background. It's covered up the foundations. Everything looks a little bit more together. Okay. Now, because this is a concept stage drawing, it's unlikely your client, remember, think about the audience, and the client here is like, just an average person, let's say. So you can actually say, well, we don't want all these technical lines on it because they kind of interrupt what the building looks like. So we can go in here and just select them and just say hide in view and switch off the whole category so they disappear. So then we have just kind of a clean view of the building. Okay. To me, this looks like the beginnings of a developed design drawing because it's all black and white. It's not really giving the client any kind of friendly, kind of attractive view of the building. They're not bad drawings, they're good drawings, but they're just not maybe adjusted for this specific phase in the project. So what I usually do is I come down here and I switch it to a realistic view, which is like that, which starts to give us some colors in there. But you can see the standard colors in Revit are usually pretty ugly. That's a pretty terrifying looking house. If you walk down the street and saw a house like that, you'd probably be close to throwing up. But that's nothing to do with the design. It's to do with the way the colors are rendered. So in order to deal with the colors, our next helpful button here is the next one down, graphic display options. So I'm going to click on graphic display options here. And I'm going to just go through this from top to bottom and change a few things. The first thing I want to do is I want to make smooth lines. So this will take away those kind of computery jagged edges for your presentation drawings. I can apply that. You don't see it so much in this view, but you can kind of start to see it's kind of blurring the lines a little bit, so they're a little bit more realistic. I'm going to change it so there are silhouettes in there, and silhouettes just make lines that are kind of out here darker. are kind of thicker, so they kind of pop a bit more out of the page. So I'm going to make the silhouettes in here to be medium lines, so they're a little bit heavier. And now we get into the shadows. So you always have shadows on your presentation drawings. I'm going to put on some shadows. If I put on cast shadows, you can't see so much because I can see the light is coming from this side. But I'm also going to turn on ambient shadows, which is just kind of the kind of shadings that you get in the corner of something. Again, you don't see this so much on this drawing here because this is actually quite a... There isn't a lot of modeling in this project, or sorry, this side of the project. When I turn to the other side, you'll see how it works. And what I often do as well is I turn on sketchy lines at concept stage, and I just put a little bit of sketchy line in there. If you watch what happens at the edges here and apply that, it just takes a little bit of line off the corner of the project. Maybe if it's 1 to 50, we might be able to turn it up a little bit more actually. So it almost looks like it's been sketched. Now, that's not. I don't want to pretend that I've drawn it by hand, but I want to give a kind of an expression that this is a sketch project. It's not a final one. So all these kind of things are psychological tests, or kind of psychological as well. Depth cueing we can play with. This kind of grays out the area in the background. Maybe I'll do that on the other side. Lighting is the important one because Revit comes with this enormously dark shadow setup initially. So what we want to do is turn the shadows right down and turn the ambient light right up. And then we get this beautiful pink house. But you can see that it's starting to be a little bit clearer as to what's going on. The shadows are not actually destroying the view of the house. We can also choose sunlight from top right or top left. It's usually when you're dealing with a presentation view, it's either from the top right or the top left. Of course we can choose realistic lighting based on where it is in the world, but it's a concept stage, so we're just trying to give a sense of what it feels like, because the realistic lighting might not be helpful. It might just make it all black or something like that. And this one is the best one, photographic exposure, because this controls the colors, which is very important in Revit. So I'm going to enable photographic exposure, color correction. I love color correction because it organizes this stuff. So I always take the saturation down. So I apply that. Sometimes you need to press apply and then apply down here as well. You can see that it starts to change the quality of the image. We can also turn the highlights up a little bit. So this is kind of a you just play with it and you test it. Turn the shadows back down again. Lighter shadows are usually better for this type of drawing. And we can also let's turn it even further up. Apply. Maybe that's a bit too much. Because it's not necessary that you get the exact right color for the brick. Like the color of a brick when you look at it right in front of your face is one thing, but how you perceive a brick when it's in an entire wall is another thing. So if you just use the same color on the entire wall, it's just completely overwhelming for a drawing at least, because you don't perceive it the same way as you do in reality. So let's take that, just make it a little bit less, and we can also make the drawing a little bit warmer. So I can, if I turn it up here, for example, you know, it'll give us this kind of orange color as well. So you can kind of play with how you want to express the kind of the color as well. So let's say we're happy with that to start with. I press OK. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this as a view template, because we don't want to have to do this work every single time, because that would just be endless boredom. So as soon as you've got a kind of a setup that you like, if I say save as view template, and I'm going to call this concept elevation. And it opens up this template dialog, and this allows us to adjust exactly what I've just been adjusting. But if now every time we do it, it will change all the drawings that use the same template. Okay. So if I press OK and press OK, if I now go to the east elevation, which looks like this, I can come over here to the view properties, go down to view template, select it, and select concept elevation, and then apply. And you can see that it changes related to it. Now sometimes it also deals with these objects as well, but it might be a case of modifying the template to deal with that stuff. So let's go into concept elevation and see if we can change the, wait a second, do we have a annotation override? So you want to change the templates to take the levels out as well. I can see they're already out. I don't know why it's not taking them out. There's something about this new version of Revit which is not completely working. But anyway, so otherwise we can just right click on them again and hide in view by category. So then we have, you know, something that looks like it's a more attractive version of the house. We can also add a sky in there. So for example, I'll go back into the template now, and if I go into the stuff down here and I go into background, we can either add an image that we have, so it could be the image of the site itself, or we can add a sky. I think they have some skies in there. Maybe they don't at the moment. Or we have a gradient, which is quite nice to use. So what a gradient does, it just gives you a color range between these three colors. So if I apply that there, you can see that it starts to give a sense that there's something happening behind the building. So the next thing we can do is just crop the view, because we don't want to have a whole load of empty space in the background here. And let's bring it up here so it's not showing behind the and then we can switch off the visibility of that.
The empty space is empty.
So then you can see that it's just a more relaxed way of looking at the project without having to do too much work. But those changes I've made, because I made them in the template view, it should, if I say view template here and go back to concept elevation and apply, it does the same thing all over. So you can actually just select all your views at the same time, right click and say apply template. So you don't have to do it all at once, and the whole thing just changes. Okay, so then I can go into each one of these. Let's go to the north one, for example, south one. You know, so you need to do small things, like you need to modify the crop region and you know, organize all that kind of stuff. But the actual work with dealing with the shadows and getting the lighting correct is all under the template view. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so now the next thing we have here, let's go into elevation west, the drawings. Oh, that's elevation east is a better elevation probably. So here we have the east elevation now set up. So now we can just say, okay, well, we're going to maybe center it on the page here, and we're going to select the this mouse, or this lack of mouse is really getting to me. But anyway, this pen isn't half as accurate as my mouse. But what can you do? So I'm going to just move the text over here. So, you know, I usually put it on the bottom right. That's the kind of the standard way to put a text in. We can also change these the title types. I just changed it to no line because we don't want to have all this information on it. And we can just plop it up there so it's in the image if we want to, okay? Now, we've taken a lot of information out of this project, but you might, especially if you go to the local authority, you might want to have the overall heights of the building put in there. You don't need to have every single level, but you want to have an idea as to how high the building is in total. So we can either go back in and modify it in the view up here, or we can actually activate the view within the sheet. If I double click on this view here, I'm now activated the view, so I can actually work in the view as if it was just in the sheet. So I'm going to go to annotate, and I'm going to use a, oops, maybe I didn't activate it. Let's right click it, activate view. Okay, so go to annotate, spot elevation. And in Europe, we generally use beam elevations rather than target elevations for this type of view. So you can actually go, you can see the way, as soon as I touch something within the drawing, it's actually giving me information regarding its height within the drawing. So we can do that with all the main elements of the drawing and just, whoops. So that means we're always showing, that was a bit crooked, but never mind. We're always showing exactly what is happening because often the local authority will ask for overall heights above the natural ground level, for example, in Denmark anyway.
Crazy control freaks.
Crazy control freaks, yeah. Oh shit, that's been recorded. Okay, so you can do that, and you can modify it. You can see it's making a white rectangle, which doesn't look so hot on a drawing like this. So we can actually edit the type of label, come down here and switch the text background from opaque to transparent, which just makes it a little bit more relaxed within the drawing. So then you have something that would look like, if you made that straight, that's crooked. That's the kind of level of information you would have in an elevation drawing for concept stage. Okay. So once we've done that, we can right click again and deactivate the view. So now we're working in the sheet again. So down here, I would say try and change this logo to something for your own, from your own group. I don't know, it could be Bugs Bunny, I don't care. As long as it doesn't say Kia Challenge the Ordinary, then I'm happy. So here is where you would put in your drawing number. So it's an elevation view. So if I click on this here, I would say it's an elevation view, but it's talking about the whole house. What does that mean? 99. So we have 99. Whoops. 99. And what level drawing do you reckon it is? Does anybody know? It's 3, yeah. Gosh, you guys are quick. You're much better than the other classes. And then the next number we put in there is just your own number. So I'm just going to call this 001. Okay. And actually, do you know what? I'm going to change that again because the reason I'm changing it is usually it's a good idea to, the different types of drawings you have, plans, sections, and elevations, if you leave a number between them. So I usually start the plans at 001, which means you have 99 possible plans. And then I start the elevations at 100. And then I start the sections at 200, for example. It's just so you have, so everything's organized for you. So that's also a standard way of doing things. So I'm going to make this 100. I'll just make it 101. So we start with 1 each time. So every elevation you have from now on will be 102, 103, 104, 105. But that number, what I'm trying to say is this number here is just completely up to you guys. This is about, the building elements. This is about the level of detail, and this is about just your own numbering system. And that's how you would do it. Okay. So so that looks like that. So let's go into a furnished ground floor. So let's start by, well, what we can do here, let's start by giving it a drawing number since we're talking about drawing numbers at the moment. So we're going to make this one 99 again. And then 3, because it's still a locational drawing. But now we're talking about a plan, so I'm just going to change it to 001. But that's our own thing. But you can see that both, the first 2 numbers for both the elevations and the plans are the same, because they're just about where it is and what the size of it is and so on. So what can we do with this plan here? So first thing I would do is, you can see the sections lines are shooting beyond the edge of the house. Or the edge of the drawing. So that means it actually won't print out correctly to scale. So I'm going to go in here, double click again, which activates the view. I can actually just select the line and just drag them in till I have them where I want them to be, like that. And the other thing we can do, certainly at concept stage, is that we can use this break line here, and I can just click on that and break the sectional line so it's not interrupting, the house itself. So now you can see now, especially if you're dealing with clients, they don't, as few lines as possible is what I'm saying in most cases. What we've also done is, because we've already set up the view template, we can just say, well, we want to make this plan just look exactly like the elevations. So I'm just going to go down to the view template here, and and we need to go up and say all, because it divides them up according to drawing type. And there's our concept elevation template. If I just apply that here, you can see it's actually showing us the materials and the lighting and so on inside the building itself. So you can apply different view templates from different views to the to whatever you want to do. Again, because it's a concept drawing, I would remove all the grids. So I'm going to right click here and say hide in view category. So you can see that all we're doing here is we're making sure that we're not talking about anything except the lifestyle of the client. And the last thing we can do here is, because the walls are, we want to make sure that there's no construction detail in the walls here, we can come up to this visibility graphics override. And actually what we can do is we'll do it in the concept elevation template, so it applies to everything each time. So concept elevation. I'm going to go into the all, and then all, concept elevation. So I'm going to modify the overrides in the template here. I'm going to click on the top, and then hold down the shift key, click on the bottom, and I'm just going to override everything so that it all turns to black. Go down to black, solid fill, and press OK. Apply, and apply. Oh, sorry, I need to switch that on as well. So there you go. So you can see that now the walls have kind of been removed from the conversation. You're just talking about the spaces in of the house and so on, so and everything that's going on inside there. And people will be less likely to focus on how the wall is constructed, because they're just thinking about the bathroom and how their storage works. So you're controlling the conversation with the client in that kind of a way. So that's the idea behind that. Now what you put in here is just text. This is just text, yeah. So has Robert gone through floor areas and schedules with you yet? No. Oh, anyway, we'll just do it here because it relates to both our topics anyway. So what you want to do is you want to use as little text as possible in Revit that's not related to anything else, because the whole point of Revit is that you can get the computer to do all the donkey work for you. So you're not spending all your time typing in stuff when the computer can do it itself. So if you set it up correctly at the beginning, it will do all that stuff for you. So if I go into the architecture tab here, we've got these room and area panel. So I can come to room here, select room, and it's saying rooms are not visible in this view. So, okay, well I'll tell you what we're going to do. We don't need to change the, I'm just going to switch off the template for the moment. I'm just going to say concept elevation, we're going to say none. So once we've applied the stuff, now we've got, it's got no template. So let's go to room again. Do you want to make them visible? Yes. So now you can see that it's starting to divide the building into spaces that are divided by walls. So I'm going to click on this one, and then I'm going to click on this one. This is all one huge space. And then we're going to click on the storage and laundry and the bathroom. So it just says room for the moment. So I'm going to, if I then click on this room, and I need to select these kind of X lines. If I select it, I can come over here and just give it a name, study. Whoops. Oh, this is not working, this pen. It's kind of annoying. There we go. Study. And same thing here. We'll just do this one. Call it dining stroke living room. And if you have an open plan area like this, which at the moment has been taken into the dining room area, let's say for example, if I select this label here and go name, number, and metric area, it's telling us that it's 88 square meters just for this living room. So you can actually come up here and use this thing called a room separator. So let's just take a room separation here to here. And depending on how your model is set up, this might work or it might not work. But if we select it, you see it's actually reduced the area of the room now. And if I select it, you can see that it's not taking in the kitchen. So then we can add a room to just the kitchen here. And let's select that. And we'll call that kitchen. And so on and so on. So the reason that I'm saying do it this way is because now we can come in here and if I say I want to make a new, if I go into the room schedule here, we can actually modify it. Actually, it'd be easier for you to see if I just make a new one. So a new schedule, architecture, and we're just going to make it about rooms. Okay. And then we're going to put in the area of the room. We want to put in give it a number, give it a name, and press OK. So now we've got all these rooms that are in the project. You can see loads of them. You've already tried to put them in several times, but there's loads of them that aren't related to anything. So we got not placed. So it's in this schedule. You can actually delete all this stuff because you want to actually remove anything that is not in the database because it will cause trouble later in the project. So everything that just has not placed, I'm actually going to delete. And here, delete. Okay. So where were we? We're on ground floor plan. So then the last thing we can do with this is because we have it as a database, we can actually, if we wanted to, give it a color scheme. So if I go into the annotate tool, and I can come over here to, I need to activate the view first, annotate. I can come over here to, oh, why is color fill not on? Oh, sorry, my mistake. Let me just go to the first floor. Color fill doesn't work in realistic view, sorry, that's my mistake. But I can come in here and say color fill legend. And I put a legend here, and then we say we want it to be rooms, and we want it to be by room name, and press OK. And it will generate a color scheme based on the rooms in the building. Now, you're having the same issue as some of the other guys in that it doesn't seem to be generating the color scheme here. But let's just go out of it. Go back into it again. This new version of Revit has some glitches in it that are not working. But anyway, what generally happens... Oh, now it's come. In the old version of Revit, that used to be instantaneous. I don't know why it's calculating it. Maybe it's a more detailed calculation or whatever. But it's also named all the rooms over here. So you can then adjust the colors because, as always with Revit, the initial colors they give you are extremely strong and ugly. So everything I do, I just always turn it right down. So it's almost like like a watercolor or something like that. So it's right in the background to take this heavy color element away from the project. Okay. So that's that. Any questions about that stuff?
Can you just click again where you set up the colors? I just couldn't see it.
Oh yeah. So if you want to modify the colors, click.
How do you get the background legend? In view menu?
How do you get this background?
No, yes,
Yeah.
Where do you click to put the background name legend?
Okay, so you come up to annotate, and then you come over to this little button here called Color Fill Legend. If you do that,
All going to be on the front of the videos?
yeah. So that's it. Actually, I can stop recording now because I've got nothing else to say.